Kristine, welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to talk with you again after all these months.
Yes. So why care? How would you apply the concept of care in organizations?
Yes, that's a very complex question, and it's a very challenging but needed task in organizations. Years ago, I was doing a lot of consulting at that time with information technology organizations, high-tech organizations, and I designed a whole approach that I called business think strategies, selling, marketing, etc., that my clients would completely dive into understanding the needs of their customers, their strategies, their business challenges. Essentially, what I was helping to them with and teaching was to enable care for their customers. If you know your customers and you're building relationships and partnerships and you're working as a team within your own organization to come together to pool the best intelligence from across the different functional boundaries, we were promoting relationships, community, and care for the customer across the organization. Many of my clients realized a 65% improvement in sales productivity. And that's a measurement that includes a combination of revenues, profits, and market share. Organizations are built of people. And people are emotional. We're not just these rational, logical beings. We have emotions. We are good at relationships. We're not so good at relationships. We're functional. We're not so functional. And we bring all of that to work. So if you look at an organization as a place where emotion exists, where values exist, where people really want to have meaning and make a difference and bring their whole selves to work, we have this incredible potential in any organizational system to fuel that.
How does this impact on leadership? Because you are talking about something that brings to my mind immediately leadership.
Great question. First of all, in many different ways. Number one, the way that I view leadership is that everybody is a leader.
Yeah, exactly.
And needs to be a leader in an organization. So when I hear that word, we're talking about fueling the potential to be a leader of every person in the organization, not just the hierarchical people at the top. So, and I think you agree with that.
Absolutely.
Okay, so if you're looking at leadership, and an individual leader, no matter where they are, we have to make decisions all the time, okay? Now, when we make decisions, we want to use the best of our capacity. We want to use the best of our brain capacity, which means being able to move to higher cortex thinking when we're perceiving a situation and choosing what we're going to do or what we're going to say. Now, we're not always there. We're triggered. We're stressed out. I want to talk about the impact of stress in leadership in just a second. If I can go to my heart and fuel care, usually by thinking of something I deeply appreciate, it changes the way that my nervous system works. My heart actually has this great power to shift my brain, move me away from my reactive center, which is typically the amygdala, and move to higher cortex thinking. So one way I'm able to make better decisions and more balanced decisions. I'm actually more rational in a balanced way when I'm fueling the emotion of care and appreciation. So that's one way that it affects leadership. Secondly, if I look at stress, I'm stressed out. I'm assuming you get stressed out. Every leader in an organization gets stressed out, especially when we are challenged with the trends, the globalization, the rate, competitiveness, the desire for more. layoffs. There's different recessions at different points around the world. We have terrorism. We have, huge challenges with the environment, with sustainability. Leaders in organizations are really faced with having to solve some of these things, because I think there is a shift in leadership in the world that's recognizing that business can be a force for good. And if business is a force for good, it causes a leader to have more concerns to think about.
Yeah.
There's the potential for even more stress. Oh my gosh, I'm polluting the environment. Now what am I going to do? Now that can be shifted to how do I turn that into an opportunity to help go change the world. But there's a stress level. There's the stress to, make sure that I'm delivering paychecks, that I'm being competitive, that I'm dealing with the pace of change. So given stress, what happens in our systems is we get crazy and are not able to access that higher cortex thinking. So with decisions, we're reactive. And this is normal. This is not about being perfect. This is about recognizing that we need to manage that the best that we can, and care can do that. The other thing, research has really shown that the best leaders have high levels of emotional intelligence and social intelligence. What that allows people to do is affect their nervous system in different ways as well. That if I can move to the part of my nervous system, move from a sympathetic nervous system that's reacting to things to the parasympathetic nervous system, I am able to move from a place of values, a place of compassion, and a place of care. What that requires is a leader to be flexible. The leader needs to operate both from sometimes a rational or even sometimes reactive mode, the best that we can, as well as compassion and balance. So another doorway in is helping people learn how to communicate, build relationships in cross-cultural kinds of environments. And there's a lot of numbers that show that how important cross-cultural competence is. And of course that's relating, that's caring for people, that's being able to move away from judgments, stereotypes, and biases to connect and actively work, share information, share knowledge, move towards goals together. Mergers and acquisitions, for example, I think the number is 50 to 60% of mergers and acquisitions fail.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons they fail, one of the top 10, I think it's one of the top 2, I believe, is because of cross-cultural difference and organizational cultural difference. So you have both the national social cultural difference as well as what happens in organizations, because of course there's both levels of that going on in mergers and acquisitions. So being able to create skilled leaders and managers who can work in that capacity, that's another doorway in for creating care in organizations.
Care is made of what?
Really great question. I think there's a lot of elements to care. So care is definitely multidimensional, okay? Whether it's governmental, organizational, personal, relational, familial, etc., okay? I believe care can be measured. Therefore, there's high care, low care, and lack of care, and then negative aspects to care.
Yeah.
Okay? And if it can be measured, and if we believe that it is inherent with every individual, it can be developed. It can be trained.
Yeah.
Okay? So we can have, let's say we have high, medium, low, and the opposite of care. Okay? I almost think the opposite of care is apathy or neglect.
Yeah.
Okay, but I think here's what I'm thinking about the relationship of care and values. First, let me talk about why I think it's important. You and I both do work with values, with individuals, with organizations. We perhaps bring it out in different ways, but the goal is to create a better world and to help people tap into their values so they can be used as criteria whether it's for themselves or build organizations or families that are adhering to the same types of commitments in terms of values. And there's all sorts of different values. And there's leadership by values, managing by values, coaching by values in organizations, building families based on values. So I've been thinking about the relationship of care and values. And I believe that values are very cognitive, okay? Values are mental decisions that we've made, okay? I believe that the sister handshake to that is care. Because care, first of all, even to get to the cognitive place to select my most important values, if I can move to my heart, I can trigger higher cortex thinking to choose things in balance that are the most meaning to me. But I think even beyond that, more meaningful than that is I have a value, I need to act on value. And I see care as the emotion behind it. It's the emotion that drives the passion and the commitment to the value and enables me to live my value and to bring it forward. So it helps us move away from a duality of right and wrong, or I have this value and I don't have a value, I'm acting with it, I'm not. But I believe it's the energy behind a value. And I also think it's the energy behind purpose. We can have a purpose. We can say, my purpose is to do X, Y, Z in my lifetime or in the world. Well, what fuels the purpose? The care, the emotion fuels it. So that's what I'm thinking. They really come together. Values are essential and really critical, and care plays a role to energize them into action and into life.
Extremely interesting, Kristine. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the time to speak with you and to share this.